So today I'm going to start by reading a poem called Blackberrying by Sylvia Plath, and then we're going to follow with the analysis of the poem. So, nobody in the lane, and nothing, nothing but blackberries. Blackberries on either side, though on the right mainly, a blackberry alley, going down in hooks, and a sea, somewhere at the end of it, heaving, blackberries, big as the ball of my thumb, and dumb as eyes, ebon in the edges, fat, with blue-red juices. These they squander on my fingers. I had not asked for such a blood sisterhood. They must love me. They accommodate themselves to my milk bottle, flattening their sides. Overhead go the troughs in black, cacophonous flocks, bits of burnt paper wheeling in a brown sky. Theirs is the only voice, protesting. I do not think the sea will appear at all. The high, green meadows are flowing, as if lit from within. I come to one bush of berries, so ripe it is of bush of flies, hanging their blue-green bellies and their wing panes in a Chinese screen. The honey feast of the berries has stunned them. They believe in heaven. One more hook, and the berries in bushes end. The only thing to come now is the sea. From between two hills the sudden wind funnels at me, slapping its phantom laundry in the face. These hills are too green and sweet to have tasted salt. I follow the sheep path between them. A last hook brings me to the hill's northern face, and the face is orange rock that looks out nothing but a great space of white pewter lights and a din silversmith beating an intactable metal. Now we will proceed with the analysis. And so, to begin with, my group is Patti Castillo, Vera Facuse, and Camille Simon. We will be analyzing Blackberrying by Sylvia Plath. So to begin with, we have to see the literal meaning of the poem. So there are words like ebon, cacophonous, cho, pewter, din, that we didn't know, and we found out that ebon is actually like another word for dark brown. Cacophonous is involving or producing a harsh, decoderant mixture of sounds. Cho is actually two types of species of birds, and so it's a type of bird. Also, pewter is a gray alloy of tin, and din is a loud, continuous noise. Some places that we found in the poem are sea, valley, the path where the blackberries grow. And so, as a whole, the meaning is talking about like the childhood of Sylvia Plath, and is talking about how she remembers the blackberry fields and picking, and she's also speaking specifically in some verses about Christianity, as we will further develop during the poem. So the themes we see are childhood, death, Christianity. And so death is like a major theme in the poem, because in the second stanza, Sylvia describes bits of burnt paper as a funeral pry. The fact that the flies are crowding among the blackberries could also be a reference to like the rotted meat, and rotted meats are oftenly attracted by dead bodies, or therefore she's speaking of death. The childhood, as mentioned before, blackberry picking metaphorically is talking about the imagery of blackberry picking, because in her childhood she was sobered by the death of her father, which was the amputation of a limb, because barely after 2 weeks after Platz's 8th birthday, and so she remembers like her childhood within like the blackberry picking. Also, there's Christianity, because Platt's mother was a devout Christian, and so she tried to instill the principles of her Christianity into her daughter's mind. For this reason, Sylvia thought that suicide was a great dilemma and guilt inside of her, because it was considered a sin in Christianity. Also, there's Christian metaphors used to construct description of her childhood, like the depiction of the paradise in the Bible. The Bible also describes paradise as a land of milk and honey. And so, in her poem, Plath also brings allusions to mild and honey, which can relate back to the same quote. She also brings the image of a milk bottle, which she's putting into the blackberries as she plucks them. Secondly, she also describes the images of flies devouring the berries as a honey feast. Also, she makes reference to the tradition Eucharist, in which bread and wine are consumed by the congregation in church. And so she has said that it to be the flesh and blood of Christ. That's what the Bible says that the tradition of bread and wine is. And so exactly like the flies feast on the berries, which should be like kind of like the wine and the bread, so the congregation consumes Christ's flesh and blood. So she's comparing those to the flies feasting. So as a whole, the poem is referring back to her childhood, with instances and thoughts and actions that have changed and molded her to the woman that she is today. Further on, we will discover like the title. So the theme of the poem is actually reflected by the title. So the information that the title gives us is that it foreshadows what we'll be talking about, the blackberry picking, which or something related to blackberries, meaning that either the fruit or the action is important to Sylvia in her life currently or when she was a child. Further on, when we read the poem, we saw that it actually did reflect a great subject in the poem, because when we're reading it, it mentions the action of blackberry picking multiple times in the poem, so it creates importance towards this action. And we can see how she compares it to her childhood. And an example of when she mentions blackberries when she says, "A blackberry alley, going in the hooks and to see." Further on, you will see the tone. So she writes this poem about 1960s, and so she publishes it as a young person. So Sylvia's still like in her young, at a young age. So in this poem, she's speaking like dark, ominous, and so she's like uncertain about when she's walking in the path where the blackberries grow, and she subsequently compares them to a human body, particularly a woman's, maybe even hers. Furthermore, she takes more intense tone when talking about the trophs and painting the sky black. She is a well-known confessional poetry. Like she usually has autobiographies and describes her story and her life during these poems. So we believe that during these the like when she was young, she was going through a rough time, and therefore she was describing like the dark skies and everything as her dark times in life. So she's trying to convey ideas about darkness, but she is also include vivid scenes about the berries and about the feast of the flies, making it a little less gloomy and a little more dramatic. The structure of the poem is definitely like there's no definite like rhyming structure. So it's a free verse. There are 3 stanzas with 9 lines each, 9 verses each, and so there are run-on lines varying in length that in fact make the poem seem like a prose-like structure, much like other poems that also Sylvia has wrote that are also confessional poetry style. So the sound and rhythm, like it has no formal structure. We have like mentioned before. And so we can see that it uses assonance and alliteration or repetition or similar sounds so that the poem can like cause like we can actually read it with Sylvia's actual tone, like the tone that she wants us to read it with. And so she makes repetition, like for example, there's only one voice, protesting, protesting. Also, the rhyme is irregular. There's no rhyming structure exactly, but there are occasional rhymes that she decides to put inside. So for language and imagery, we have a symbolism, which is the blackberries represent unconditional love. The blood sisterhood is the unconditional devotion given by family. The milk bottle is actually a literary device collecting blackberries. It can be metaphorical, meaning that of the motherly love. And the birds feasting of blackberries are also symbolism, as we saw before, and the flies feasting also can represent the Bible. Also, we have personification, when they say theirs is the only voice protesting, protesting. They believe in heaven because they're giving voice to something that has no voice, actually. We also have metaphors, and so the metaphors can be bits of burnt paper wheeling in a brown sky. She's comparing the bits of burnt paper and like the cloudy, like a darkness in the sky, gloominess, like the clouds in the sky. Also, we have so ripe it is a bunch of flies. She's comparing the feast of flies to the Bible. Also, we have alliteration when they repeat the sound and repeat nothing in the lane and nothing and nothing. We can also consider this more of a repetition. We have blackberries as big as the ball when they sound a lot the letter B. Also, we have bits of burned paper. Also, the letter B. We also have green metals are glowing, and blue-green bellies. Alliteration. We also have assonance when they say thumb and dumb. And she uses these devices to create images and pictures for her audience to better comprehend the poem. She uses these devices to create images for her audience to comprehend them. And that is it. That is our analysis of the poem Blackberrying by Celia Plath. Thank you very much.